Okay, everyone, and I want to welcome all of you guys to a new video. And if you've never been to my channel before, welcome to my channel. I'm so glad that you decided to click this video and that I really hope you are going to enjoy the content of it. And you are also totally welcome to check out all my other videos on my channel and like them, comment on them, subscribe, share them with your friends, whatever. That would be totally amazing, and you guys are wonderful. So, to kind of give back to you guys a little bit, I've had people ask me how I do my line art because my line art looks, kind of smooth or whatever. And I mean, I'm going to come clean with you guys. My line art is honestly a little bit messy. It just looks clearer from a distance. But people have said that they liked my line art and that they want to know how I do line art. And so I thought I would make this video showing you guys how I do that. Now I am working in Paint Tool SAI, and the techniques that I'm going to show you can pretty much be used in any other program with either similar tools or just by using the basic techniques that I talk about, even if they don't have these tools. So with that, let's get started. Now, when I'm sketching, this thing up here, my stabilizer, which in some versions is called a smoothing or a smoother or something, is usually set around 9 or 10. And that just gives you really comfortable sketchy sweeps. However, I can't really use that setting comfortably when I'm doing line art, because if you just draw a line, it gets a little wiggly. It only works if you go fast, and even then, it's just not as smooth as I would like it to be. So, with that, I change my settings. Now here we have a whole list of settings from 0 all the way up to S7. Typically for my line art, I hang around 14 and 15, 15 preferred, because it still gives you that kind of sketchy, you're in control feel while smoothing out your lines. And that's just my favorite setting. That's a personal preference. Some people don't like that sketchiness, and some people just don't feel comfortable working that way. So it's totally up to you and your personal preferences, but that's just how I like to work. I also will note that you're more likely to have holes in your line art if you do that way. So it's really something, if you're using a selection tool, you really need to be careful of that, and I'll talk about that later. Now, another way to do this is using the settings in the S settings. S1 and S2, pretty much up through S3, really don't show all that much difference to me. And I don't particularly like those settings that much, and I don't really use them for anything. Typically, if I'm going to use anything in the S settings, it's going to be between 6 and 7. And I usually use S7 if I really need to use the stabilizer, because if I need the stabilizer, then I need everything it can give me. So this is how this kind of works. See how the cursor is way ahead of where the line actually shows? This really just smooths out your line, because the minute movements of your hand isn't going to affect how the line moves. It's pretty much just going to be smooth depending on the average motion that you put into the work. Now here I have this sketch set up to kind of show you what I mean. Here I am on the stabilizer setting of 15. This doesn't come very easily. You really have to work at it, and you might have to do the line over several times before you get it where you want it, because you're still in control of what your hand is doing and how the line art works. So it takes a little bit to get the line where you want it to be. But if you don't have that patience, or you don't have that kind of time, you can always bump up your stabilizer and then follow the line, and it'll pretty much take you exactly where you want it to go. It will look a little bit stiffer, but again, that's all personal preference. So now I want to talk about the selection tool a little bit. even though the selection tool is completely different from how you do line art, they do kind of tie in, because if you're using the selection tool, it might be a little frustrating working with your line art, especially if there are holes in your line art. Now, here I have 3 separate little crappy little line arts to show you this. So I'm going to start off with my magic wand tool over here, and you have transparency strict, transparency fuzzy, and color difference. I usually keep it around transparency strict, and here is the transparency difference bar. This can be adjusted so that you can see how much fill you want the tool to have. And the higher the transparency difference is, the more likely it is to seep through your line art. See, like this, you will see this is my closed line art, and my transparency difference is set on 255, which is the highest I can go, and it seeps through. Even though there are no immediate holes in my line art, the thinness of the lines give it the opportunity to seep through. Typically, I hang around between 0 and about 40 or 45, around that range. That seems to be a pretty safe range. And see, around this range, that entire heart was selectable. So that's totally great. Now here is the open heart. As you can see, it's obviously going to seep through because there's a very, very large gap here. The only way to fix that will be to either fill in the hole or actually use a selecting pen, in which you can then close the hole and then select your area. Now, on this one, there's a tiny little space between the lines, barely noticeable, and you would really have to look for it in your line art. However, it is still there, and your magic wand tool will definitely seep through at a higher setting. Here is how you fix that. You take it all the way down to 0, and then that heart is selectable. If the heart is still not selectable, it is because the gap is too wide and you'll have to fix it. I don't really want to go too in-depth about the selection tool or anything like that, because it is a different tool and there's a lot of things that I could talk about with it, but it's also very basic, and after working with it for a little while, you guys will totally be able to get it. So don't sweat it at all. However, if you have any questions, you can totally ask me. So with that, I want to say that I have basically showed you how I do line art, and there's really not that much to it. So just go have fun and work on your line art the best. The best thing I can say for you guys is to practice at it. Everyone is bad at line art when they first start out, so don't let it discourage you. I was awful at line art, but as time goes on, you get a little better at it. My best suggestion, however, would be not to do sketchy line art. So, I mean, don't follow lines like this, because it looks like you had no care in your artwork, and you didn't really care what you were doing, you were just trying to do it really fast. Line art takes a lot of care, so you really have to just focus on what you're doing to get the desired effect, to make a really appealing piece of artwork. But other than that, it's still all personal preference, and anything you decide to do will be what you decide to do, and that's awesome and amazing. And art doesn't really have any defined lines, so you just keep rolling with whatever you're rolling with. So, I would like to thank all of you guys so much for watching this video. I hope it was at least a little bit helpful to you guys, and I really appreciate any comments and likes and subscriptions. It's really, really great. I'm really trying to get my YouTube channel going, and I'm trying to be as active as I possibly can, which means that if you have questions, if you want to see a tutorial or something like that, you can leave a comment, message me on social media. I'll put links to all of that in the description for you guys to check out. I would really appreciate it, and just thank you guys so much for watching.